This week, the big news would have to be what we were teasing coming from Mr. Keith Lee. A couple weeks back, he said he's going to tell his story in a couple weeks, so to hold on. And now this morning, as of this recording, he has.
That's right.
Right. What exactly was said, Brian?
Well, first of all, let's put some context in. Now, a lot of people have strong feelings about Keith Lee and his worth and his place on the roster, first in NXT, then in WWE. So he was gone for like 5 months, from like January until very recently in Dallas when he came back. There was no Keith Lee, and there was a lot of conflicting reports and rumors as to why that was. Something having to do with his weight or his style not being congruent with his size, having to go to the Performance Center and retrain, essentially. All these different things. And there's a lot of radio silence until finally today, this morning, Keith Lee put out a video on YouTube explaining pretty much everything we wanted to know, explaining his side of the story. Kind of going sequentially or chronologically here. Mm-hmm. He opens up by saying he contracted COVID earlier in the year, back in January. So he was out for 3 weeks, he said.
Right.
And one thing he wanted to make really clear in this explanation was that there was a rumor that his girlfriend, Mia Yim, or his fiance, I should say now, Mia Yim had given him COVID. But it actually sounds like the inverse happened because Mia Yim didn't get it until after Keith had already recovered. But he also makes a point to say that if it wasn't for Mia Yim staying at home to help him, which ultimately cost her a shot of being in the Royal Rumble match, then things might have gotten really bad,
right?
According to Lee, which is like, Jesus, how bad was his case of COVID if it was like he needed her to be there with him, or things might have gotten hairy?
Yeah, I can just from someone who's been sick before, been in the hospital, not with COVID, but just, having some sort of an inspiration or someone there sometimes can just make a world of difference,
oh, sure.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It really can. So, you know what? Kudos to Mia for being a ride or die chick.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier in the year, my girlfriend thought she had gotten COVID, and you know what? I didn't care. I want to be right there with her. So I was like, you know what? I'll be right here with you. So that's true love for sure. But you know what? I mean, it could have been worse.
Yeah. And the thing, it did get worse because what happened is he was out for 3 weeks with COVID, came back, had a match against Riddle. And then after that, like the day after, apparently, he was told that there was something wrong with his blood. They did an MRI on his heart, and he had an inflamed heart.
Oh, my God.
And that was the big issue. And it got to the point where the MRIs kept getting worse. And that's scary to think about. He was told he couldn't do any physical activity beyond a light walk. Otherwise, he risked dying. That's how serious this was.
You risk dying. I mean,
it's sit around or die. That
sounds like almost every pharmaceutical drug these days, the commercial for it.
Right. Of all the side effects. But no, so that's scary to think about, to the point where he had to be flown out to Pittsburgh to see what was going on with his heart. And only after a long time of waiting did the inflammation go down. And then came the process of him getting back into ring shape.
Right.
Which then that probably took longer than the whole effort with his heart. I'm willing to bet. If you're going to be sedentary for that long, you got a lot of catching up to do.
I wonder if something like that. I mean, I wonder if he's going to change his style up a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he describes it in the video as a fight against death. That's how scary it was.
Ugh.
That's really just terrifying to think about because he's a relatively young man. He's not an old guy.
Right.
He's an elite athlete, and I don't know. He didn't make a connection between COVID and the heart condition in his video, so I'm going to take that as
something different.
That there is no connection.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to interpret that as. But I know a lot of people are going to probably make assumptions. So I mean, I guess until he says it, then
I mean, hey, as you know, with COVID, your lungs fill up with fluid, and it's harder to breathe.
Yeah,
which is more strain on your heart.
There's a lot of things we still don't know about COVID and what the long-term effects of it are.
Well, just thinking you're possibly, I'm sorry, man, but just if I was told I had COVID and I was showing symptoms that were really, really bad instead of just like a light cough or something like that, I would be freaking out internally, like, oh my God, am I about to die and I have no control over it?
Mm-hmm.
So I could see where like you could maybe scare yourself into having a heart condition even, so yeah, there are things that could happen with it, but I would assume at this point it's not necessarily connected either.
Right. So he was cleared after a long time of waiting. The heart condition, or the inflammation of the heart, finally died down. He says, he has fought death. He doesn't mind fighting anyone else. That's kind of how he wrapped up the video. But it's like that hopefully answers a lot of people's questions. Because I know a lot of people, like I said, had very strong opinions about him being there, him not being there. People were casting a lot of rumors about
the rumors were stupid.
Mia Yim, like apparently allegedly giving him COVID. That was the claim. But
why? Because she was Asian?
Well, I don't think so, but I mean, I would hope that's not the case. But it seems to be something where it's like a lot of things were blown out of proportion and all these people ran with these stories, but that does not seem to be the case. I think if Keith Lee had a heart condition, he would not be able to go to the Performance Center to relearn moves and stuff.
Absolutely. But I think the dumbest one of them had to be the fact that people were saying that Vince didn't he didn't think that he worked a big man style.
Yeah, that was the most outlandish. Of all the theories as to why Lee was gone, that one never held weight with me. I just thought that was the silliest of all, because it seems like Keith Lee's the kind of guy who is everything Vince wants in an athlete. A big guy who can move. How many times has Vince tried to push that mold of like a hoss who's athletic?
Right.
It's so I think that hopefully this will settle any rumors as to what happened, what was going on with Keith during that time. I think it's really brave of him to finally come out, because that must have been hard to stay quiet about it for as long as he did and have all these people speculate about his future in the meantime.
Why? Let me ask you this, though. Why do you think he stayed silent about
Well, I mean, I'm sure because it was an ongoing thing. He didn't.
Yeah, but he could. I mean, you know how people are, man. They take a crap on Facebook, and they got to tell you how the next one's going to be consistency-wise.
Who knows? Who knows what his reasoning for it? How much of it might have been influenced by his bosses as to stay silent. There's probably a lot of reasons as to why he did that. I think that it must have been tough to stay silent for as long as he did, and for him to finally put that out there. And to therefore, no matter what he would say, he's going to put himself up to scrutiny no matter what.
Maybe so, but I'm looking at this, man. Like, honestly, like they could have a WWE special about his coming back and like almost like Roman with the cancer.
Well, yes, and that's something, and that's they perfectly well could do that. And I think they'd be within their rights if Keith Lee let them, and that'd be awesome. If it turns into a big redemption story, that's awesome. But I mean, I'm not going to question why he was silent about it. I respect him for his ability to keep kayfabe on that, and for his bravery in coming out and talking about, his COVID diagnosis and all the health problems that have come after that. So it's another scary thing, man. It's like, it's crazy to see how fragile life can be, that someone like Keith Lee was in a fight against death where it's like he could have literally died at any time in the last 5 months, it seems. So shout out to Keith Lee and much respect for him for telling his story.
Right.
And hope he makes a full recovery and that whatever issue this is goes away and does not come back.
Want to hear more? Subscribe to This Week in Regret on YouTube for full episodes of the podcast, dropping every Thursday night. Don't forget, we're also on SoundCloud.